Kia ora koutou. Thank you all for coming today. I'm Moya. I'm the curator of At Thresholds, the exhibition upstairs. And it's such a pleasure and a privilege to have Debra in the gallery today. My ideas behind At Thresholds owe a lot to Debra. She's been making work and thinking about our relationships with the natural world for a long time, long before it was cool. So it only seems right to have you here today to talk about your story as a whole. So thanks for coming in. Cool, I'll hand it over to you.
I would just begin by asking my son Kuriho what to start this whole Kuriho with our karakia. You, Kuriho.
Tēnā tātou ku hui mai nei i tēnei rā. E whakawhētai ki te mahana o te rā, ki te tūtōtuki o te kahikatea, ki te pupuhi o ngā hau o tāwhiri mātea. A mihi hoki ki te mana whenua, te atiawa, whānui, Aotirā ki ngā tangata ko wehe ki te pō. Haere, haere, haere atura. Ka whakakoikoia ko te atua whaia, tukutuku atu ki te atua matua, kia paupaua te mauri, te whānau, te aroha, te hauora, me te rangatiratanga. Ara rā te whare auaha. Kia tū, kia ora, kia tukutuku atu ngā whainga ki te whare, haumi e, hui e, tai ki e.
Okay, oh. Well, I had to, I suppose I'll just start. It's the best thing. I'll start my my slides and yeah, just again, lovely to be here and see a lot of old friends here that are here to tautoko, which is really beautiful. And can everyone hear me all right? Yeah. Okay. I do have to stand close to this. I'd rather be running all around the stage, but I try and stay still. Okay. Ko wai au. Okay, so ko takitimu te waka, ko tāwhirirangi te maunga, ko mohaka te awa, ko Ngāti Pāhauwera te hapu, ko Debra Bustin. I'm going to just start presenting my, how would I say, my art and my life are intrinsically woven together. There's no separation. So I'm hopefully take you on a journey, sort of using pictures to illustrate, what I'm saying, and see where it goes. I am going to do this as organically as I can. I don't believe in rehearsing. I like to sort of take the strands of everything that is there for me to access and weave them into something that we don't really know what it is going to be until the end. So I'm going to start with my tamaititanga. My brother and a sister, and I grew up in Raumati on the Kapiti coast, and my mum is Julie and my dad is Dudley and Dudley Bustin, and we moved to Wellington when I was 9 and pretty much stayed there for the well into my adulthood, and really loved Wellington. Now, where am I? Tamaititanga. So, as a child, people say to me, when did you start doing art? Well, I was saying pretty much I was sort of like just born doing art. I was really just loved it. I was a very imaginative child, and I really wasn't very good at talking. My speech would all come out all sort of in a big, unintelligible bundle as a child, and so I suppose a bit of like not very socially included in the world around me, and so I used to spend a lot of time on my own, playing with sticks and stones and making little sculptures in the earth, and I really enjoyed doing that. And I was quite happy. I was very comfortable in that creative space, and I feel very blessed that I did have that start in life, because I feel like there was a lot of hustle and bustle all around us these days, which really keeps us away from engaging in a creative engagement with life. So I've just put that there because I just always found life really just intriguingly amazing, and just the magic within the small things in life. I've mixed up all these pictures. I did think about doing sort of like a chronological sort of order of pictures, but I thought, oh, we'll maybe just put images in to just emphasize my point. So that was a painting. The last one, this is another painting. This is how I imagine, like when I was a child, when we were growing up in Raumati, and yeah, just being always sitting under a tree by myself. Yeah, pretty much a lot, and yeah, just completely happy, very, very happy in that world. So feel very blessed to have that that beginning in life. Tipuranga, as I grew up. Okay, so at my when I was about 13, my mum told me big news that they were both adopted. Like, Dad was a foster child and Mum was adopted, and so suddenly I had an intense feeling of just being like an island, like feeling like I'd just been beamed down from Starship Enterprise or something, and it was quite a shocking thing, and I would say that it's quite a determining aspect about my art and my life. So we weren't Bustins at all. She doesn't even exist, Debra Bustin. She's a made-up character. But yeah, that's just a little painting, I thought. So there was a sort of a cultural reality around at the time. This is I think sort of quite a good picture of it. This was called the Number Box, and it was a theatre that was like a travelling little theatre that I worked with some friends in Wellington, and we sort of set up at different places. This was set up at the Summer City, and the little place was sort of set up, and then there'd be like a little harmonic, a little accordion, and it would sort of open up, and there was this sort of crazy little, funny little constructed world, and there was a exploding TV over in the back, and it's Joanna Clouston and David, someone, Alan Clouston and Peterson, Stephen Sinclair in there. Yeah, Alan's passed on in this time. So, you know, we were behind the TV pumping out all the blood all over the people, and made sure that it was really well tasting, really good. And it was all a lot of fun. I'm just trying to think about something that I might have forgotten to say. We'll just see what happens. So this is just a little sort of screen print, a little boat on the rocky shore, and so after we sort of had the roots taken off us, because we always thought that we were well connected, but we sort of found that we didn't know anything about ourselves. It was a big shock, and I went off roaming all around the South Island, and ended up like getting into lots of trouble and really living pretty adventurously, wonderfully adventurously, actually. I had a great time. It was peppered with some not so good ones, but yes, that was really, it was like that. And then when I was 18, I found, my dad actually met his real mother for the first time, and that was quite an eye-opener. It was a strong sense of identity because she was of Ngāti Kahungunu descent, and we only knew her for a very short time before she passed away, sadly, but she was like a rock to hold on to. And at that time, I left an abusive relationship and went off to do adult student, because I had left school at sort of 14 and taken off down south, and I came back as an adult student at Wellington High School and worked under Robert McLeod. He was my teacher, and he was really cool, and he was always all about expressionism, so that was a really cool thing to feel that you could actually express yourself, like with art, and I really loved that. Yeah, that was very cool. So off I went to art school, and I went down south in the Christchurch, and that was all right. That was quite good, but I found it quite restrictive, and came back and started making exhibitions. What was really cool was I found a place where I found a place where if I just made what I wanted to make from my heart and whatever I imagined, people were really appreciating it. And so I really sort of jumped in full into just making whatever I imagined. And I've always loved to use all materials, like just whatever you need to make with, just use them, just enjoy them. And yeah, I'm not really interested in getting too stuck on any particular material, because everything has got a way to make. And yeah, so this was an installation. I loved taking over whole rooms. It was quite an interesting time. This is like late 70s, early 80s. This was at the Anzac event in Hobart, and a whole lot of us young artists went over there, and we set up the whole area, and everyone had the exhibitions. This was all animated with machines and like little puppets. It was all sort of wire and paper and enamel paint, and it refers to the little, like, the horrible little sort of like business sort of guy that I was really honed in on all the time. And the woman this is about the rape of Papatūānuku, and the rape of the earth, and the sort of greedy, yeah, I don't know. I always see things in black and white a bit in the early days, but just love to envelop people. I started learning how to screen print, and used to do these screen prints at home using the old varnish that's made out of beetles that you mix with methylated spirits. Shellac, yeah. And then used to just paint on old Tyrolean curtains over screens that used to just make, and do them sort of on my bedroom floor. And so I used to do a lot of my exhibition posters and publicity and that. And this is one of them. And this is how I was feeling at the time. It was just sort of like just my whole blood and guts and heart just ripped open for everybody to just see and feast on. But yeah, it was a love affair with screen printing that started quite young. I was one of them. And so I came back to Wellington. I had exhibitions. I was doing installations. This was at the City Gallery, if I remember right. I took over the whole place, covered the floor in black polythene, and the whole space. I really enjoyed just using the whole space as a canvas. And the imagery that was around this at the time, I was really enjoying listening to like Miles Davis and the sort of really creative jazz sounds, and just like making I just wanted to make sort of visual music. And yeah, it was a crazy thing and cool. And that picture that was advertising this talk is me standing in the middle of that. It was all animated with motors as well, so it was also sort of like a puppet show as well. Okay, this is the screen print, a detail of the screen print that I made from that installation upstairs. So you'll see recognisable aspects in it. So I really liked mixing up my images with different pictures, and it was all about being born into life, because I've always found life really fascinating and beautiful, wondrous, and just like the more you look, the more you'll find, and it's just unbelievable. I feel so grateful being alive, and it's something that that has taken me on an amazing journey. I made a decision early on in life to devote myself to living with my imagination and creatively, and just probably all I can say about that. Yeah, I started making tents in rooms. So I started making at first sort of like changing the whole environment as a canvas, and then I started working like on tents within tents within tents, and worlds within worlds that were all informed by my personal relationship with life and the natural world and music, and it was all very unsaleable stuff, It was like crazy. You couldn't really separate. People used to sort of get the odd thing for sort of souvenirs and have them, but they were all worked. They were all interrelated, so they weren't really saleable items, which sort of made it sort of difficult as an artist to survive. But hey, it was about the whole process and doing of it. Yeah, I just love the whole carnival of life. This is like a little mirror box. I started getting into kaleidoscopes and reflections, and I just found that there was like there's like a coldness of engagement with life that I found through my art. I could really go through boundaries that the sort of social construct around wasn't very providing for me at the time. But yeah, the contained person, the boxed person, enclosed in a like a specimen. This talks about the whole sort of museum, and what's the word? Museums and all that stuff. Yeah, things on display. Yeah, I was at the time early Wellington doing a lot of posters for bands and cafes. This was a detail of the Midnight Espresso one, and I got I became friends with the Chris McBride and Dave Kent at the Wellington Media Collective, and they showed me how to do screen printing without using Tyrolean curtains and shellac. And so I started getting some really nice sharp edges, and sort of really got into quite a lot of posters. I could fill this whole tool cup of screen prints. If be another day, maybe. Yeah. I was very interested in the structures of law and justice and government, and this was a piece that it went around a bit. It started off at the orientation, some of it at the Church University student orientation. They gave me the whole orientation student union building, and I just decked it out with these sort of huge big effigies of the sort of icons of the day. We had the Queen of England there with her scales of justice, and funded by her little patriarchy at her foot, and her dominating, murderous sort of power. Over on the side there, oh no, sorry, I've got a little red thing here, yeah. There you can see up there, they're all the sort of like hundreds and hundreds of little disposable humans, all with their little barcodes, and yeah, great little vacuum packed people. I really enjoyed doing paper mache because it meant that I could make things really quickly, and it was another thing away from doing the sort of abstract music inspired like fantasy, like what's the word, just for the sake of just getting into the creative flow, and rejoicing in that, and playing in that space. I've found that I could strong social commentary in this effigy sort of paper mache type of thing, which was quite fun. So yeah, so just about time I was doing things like the people of the world in the clutches of the evil god of righteous greed, and the concept of God, I find, like these days, I find God is an adequate word to describe something really deep about our life, and there's not many words in the English language that talk on that level of being, but in this context, it's about using that right of all people to have their cosmology and their origin exploited, yeah. So that's and then claiming that authority. Yeah, so that's what that's about. And then he turned up into an effigy as well, just up at Midnight Espresso to this day, I think. Got involved in with those big effigies and the what's it called? The nuclear ships were coming into our harbour. It was pretty scary, actually, and there were there was quite a lot of information about the problems of nuclear power and nuclear waste and the impact that would have on the environment. So, yeah, got straight into focusing on that, and that I really like the sort of in-your-face type of, well, the reality of that is charred bodies and crazy fire and misery and death and sadness, and I can't understand why people want to create things like that in our beautiful world. So that was an interesting thing in my life to be a part of, because it started off, what I gained from doing that, apart from us becoming nuclear free, it was really, I don't know if anyone was involved in that in the audience. Is anyone, you were, Bob and Maggie, you were there. made models. It was cool. There were a lot of people involved. We had this warehouse that I had as a studio on Wakefield Street, just around the corner, and it was stinky with car paint fumes. Hariata, your brother, had the spray paint underneath, and the spray fumes used to come through. We were also busy down there creating, and up there, and it was pretty cool because what I loved was how one seed, if it's like an idea whose time is it's the right time, how with the right sort of structure, how things can grow and action and manifest into an outcome, and like a really cool outcome. It was really quite amazing. Yeah, so we were a part of the marches on those days. I think that's these are little glimpse. So what we had was a whole storyline all around the walls. People would come in, either they could donate things like money or materials, or they'd have ideas, and we made a timeline all around this huge big warehouse. People would come and put their little their images into that timeline, and it got bigger and bigger and showed the whole political build-up to the point where we actually had really horrific technology in our precious world. So it was pretty cool, and people come in and offer just to build stuff and help other artists and people that had an idea to make something. There's a whole big corridor on that. It's cool. It was very, very cool. That's me walking along with my dead baby. So yeah, just sort of like, but that's another screen print that does say Beyond Ansys under the bottom, and just so it did very sort of pretty much polarized, black and white, good, bad type of world view. This is about colonisation, about walking in the mana of your tupuna and your rangatiratanga, and really sort of like walking through a hostile world. I don't know why that one's there, but anyway, that's all right. Be Alive tent. Okay, this is one that sort of got me going for a while. Be Alive tent. Okay, so I made this sort of like box. You couldn't get into it. That's me there. I made this like box, and tried to make it as ancient as possible. And the only way you could get in were these openings that I'm about to go into. And you've got 2 armholes and 2 leg holes, and you step in, and there was one on either side, and it's me climbing in. It's for big people, and the other one was for little people, and you were like elasticated to the walls, and you're inside, and you had sort of like mirror on either side, so that inside you were contained. So the only way it was like an expression that you could only be alive by climbing sort of in and sort of animating yourself. And it was quite cool because when people climbed out, if you were inside and you see people climbing out, you just see that life force just like when people die, you know, it's just that the spirit just gone, and then they see them sort of animated back into it again. You couldn't quite touch them. You're always sort of just that far away. And I love the idea of the Be Alive tent. It only existed once for about 5 days in Auckland, and I spent about 2 weeks making it. I had the costumes for some time afterwards, but it was never recreated as the Be Alive tent again. So the whole Be Alive tent, that's where I'm coming from all the time. It's like, this is just like an amazing phenomenon. It's just so amazingly beautiful and complex, and everywhere you look, it just reveals itself to be, it just gets better, you know, you look wee into the little microcosmic world, it just goes on forever, you know, you look everywhere, it's just, no matter where you put your focus. Yeah, so, which brings me to taiao. As I said, when I was young, a big love of mine, and to this day, I just, yeah, absolutely love it. So this is called The Sky. This is a screen print, a piece of a screen print. And that's like just taking like a piece of sky and just sort of like taking it, that's all, just taking a piece of what we see as sky. And this was all about like the little stirring little microorganisms that are all working together, creating life. And I just wish they were sort of all moving and animated, really, but I tried to make them animated in this picture. This is a stained glass window. It was quite a nice stained glass window. Don't know what happened to it. That's like that's called sort of like the sea, because it's just like, again, it's that thickness of the focus of what that is, a piece of it. There's a kereru. I'd done this when I was working as a guide on Kapiti Island, that I did for about 10 years, which got me into the ngahere, and I was just in my happy space, in my happy place. And the manu there on Kapiti Island are just like, you would not believe how tragically damaged and depleted our natural environment is now. Like, from a beautiful rainforested world that you couldn't even hear yourself speak because of the sound of the manu was just so many. And on Kapiti Island, they're all there, you know, it's just amazing. You can just be in one spot and they're all there. They just all come all around you. You just wouldn't know. In this modified world we live in, we just have no idea what's been lost. So I just loved working on, just doing pictures of all the creatures and all the beautiful life. There's a whole lot, and the cat eating the lizard, and the bee in this comb, and all that. Okay. So let's go on whare. Whare, it's all about the whare. This is like universes, started like focusing on universes. And this had a spinning universe inside it. This was at the City Gallery too, in one of my exhibitions here, back in the 80s. This is also in the City Gallery, upstairs in the old building. So there's the whole sort of coming to terms with the universe around us as a beautiful structure, which is, as I understand it now in my old age, is whare atua, which is all around us, which we're actually in the heart of, in the womb of. Okay, the universe. So I got a commission from the Auckland City Gallery to basically do whatever I wanted. It was cool. And so I made my first, the universe. This was a kaleidoscope, a 6-sided kaleidoscope box. It's about, I don't know, probably about 4 metres tall, maybe a bit more. But you step in through this opening, you activate an electrical switch, the lights will go on, machinery will start spinning, and the tree of life is all inside it, and it's got mirrors lined all over, and everything is just is spinning around, and the lights are all alive and animated, and they're holding musical instruments, and as the tree of life goes around, it's playing a tune that repeats itself, and because of all the mirrors, you're actually in the middle of a ngahere, and you can actually see where are we? We're there. That's where you end up standing. That's the little stage, you end up there and you've got metal bars, you can't get closer, you're disconnected, you've got to disconnect from the what is. It was pretty cool. It looked really beautiful. So the Auckland City Gallery owns this. It might be a little bit like the work that has recently been set up here and been in a crate for 40 years. Maybe one day open it and let the genie out. Yeah, so that's sort of a close-up of it. I really love that. Tangata, I just sort of like really interested in social structures, people working together. Really interested in all the social dynamics and how people work together and relate to each other. I feel like we're all so disconnected and lost, as we really are. We've just colonised ourselves for so many generations all over the world, and it's like, I don't think globalism is all that. But this is like we all look pretty cool sort of to each other because we're familiar to each other, but from someone from outside of our sphere of being, see these little organisms called humans, maybe, that was like that. That's wire and paper. There's another one, this is called The Kiss, and it's about the space in between people. So we like we do a lot of the individualism of thinking about our appearance and not really thinking about the space that we create in between each other. So yeah, that was about that one. This is called Neighbours. This is another painting, and that again is like all the sort of stuff, all the spills and the moaning and all the little things, and and that sort of like talking about the weather type of relationship, and again the space in between, which isn't being acknowledged, perhaps. Yeah, another one about relationship, love relationship, the primal nature of tahatani and tahawahine, and I suppose all the social games and problems that people face, and sort of nuclear family models and things like that. Oh, and that just goes. So yeah, this brings me to like worldview, and I like this picture to talk about worldview, because this is like what you see is not it's like a little face, which is actually a little wrigglies and creatures, because sort of, and it's a face, but yeah, it's living, and it's yeah. Oh, and there it goes. I love that. Yeah, so this is a little drawing. I don't know if I can. I'll try to express. So this little kid's looking at this beautiful tree, and they're so full of wonder of being like recently born, and everything is just so exciting and beautiful. But the dodgy old parent who's really sort of indoctrinated from the education systems and just the things that the acceptable sort of structures that have gone on for many generations, and the way that this beautiful life form is just stuck in the word of a tree. So he gives that my sweet precious offspring is a tree. That is that. There's nothing. There's no more to it. That's it. They've got different worldviews. So that sort of expresses different worldview to me. They're very different. They're seeing two different things. I really love Rākau. I love, this is that one from that one upstairs. So that sort of reminds me of the way te-coca trees, cabbage trees, they're so sort of comically sort of alive and characterised. yeah, that's how I just, they all are just so beautiful. That was that whakaaro. This is another rākau that's, yeah, they're sort of mixed up with the sort of imagery of fear, I suppose, of creepy crawlies. This is a relatively recent work, which is the Tree of Life. And my whakaaro on this, I'm thinking about the depletion of the ngahere and the natural habitats, and especially, you know, in contrast to what we see on places like Kapiti Island. And then we have really sad diseases of kauri, with like kauri dieback, and my whakaaro on this is that they're dying of loneliness because they've lost their whole heart and their whānau, and it's just, yeah, it's just very, very sad. So that's about that. This is about sort of just, I don't know, sort of like a crazy little picture. I don't know why I got it in there really, but it's just like, you know, climbing the ladder. Is it kind of going up, going down, you know, going with the flow, just mixing our lives up with other characters. Oh, there we go. Mahi raranga. So in about the early 80s, I learnt how to weave harakeke by Eranora Pukitapuhitat, and that's been really important to me for many, many years. So it's something that I've used to use metaphorically, and yeah, I just love it. I just love how you can take all these unrelated strands, all these different strands, and bring them together to make a whole. Yeah, this is another space between one. It's called the Bathers. It's quite a big work, and this is all harakeke woven between. So it's like the illusion is what you see in the in the imageries are the sort of bathers, and we're having a really good little sort of orgasmic time in that. And but the space between is the real world. Yeah, so it's just a little bit of my mahi harakeke. Whānau, okay, so we're all about whānau now. I've done this when I was hapu with my son, Kuruho. And again, that's about that, the real world as opposed to the illusionary one. This is Kuruho again, after he was born. So about that time when I was actually hapu with Moana, started making my first tent of the universe. There you are, Moana, inside that picture. And there's our tent of the universe right out here on the Civic Square lawn in front of the old public library. And inside that with all the effigies, and it was pretty cool. I don't know if anyone saw that, but did anyone go in there? Yeah, it was cool, eh? It was really cool, yeah. They tried to close us down. Didn't fit into the normal ideas of... It was for the International Arts Festival, which they invited me to put an exhibit out there. Ended up putting our Tent of the Universe, their title deed for the world, entitled Tent of the Universe Mark II. This is outside Katihiku Marae. This is a big project. I was hapu with Kuruho when I made this. It was like a really big project. We all worked together on it, and the idea was to travel it around and set it up at different places, and it had, you know, it was cool. Got right out of the art gallery sort of thing, because I really got quite depressed with the art gallery thing. It was all pretty cool when I was young, but there was something completely missing, and the missing part is that it's a vacuum. You can't just make stuff to sell to people with money and have it disappear, and you've got to have, if you're going to create and make it your life, you have to have value and be of a part of the world around you, which is really an important aspect about my last probably 30 years of work. And we travel around to different places and create and sometimes leave beautiful taonga behind. Yeah. It's about 20 years ago, I went to Te Wānanga o Raukoa and did Māori laws and philosophy, and I wanted to know, I couldn't understand why money existed and why all these systems, social systems existed. I couldn't work it out. I tried to find it. I couldn't work out why these weird things existed. So I went and did Māori law and philosophy and Te Wānanga, and it was completely filled me. It was so much kai in so many ways, and I understood. I realise now why it all exists. At that time, I had to also do my iwi and hapu studies, which led me to actually search for our whakapapa and reconnected me to my whenua and tupuna and mohaka. With my kids' babies, sort of getting involved in kuhanga reo. This is tāwhiki, climbing up the akamatua, where it claims the three kiti of knowledge, which is so dear to us, and the whole kohanga is based on four atuatanga, very important in Te Ao Māori, and tāwhiki, the journey, mokopuna. It's the generations. This is the world as a womb. This is going to be a model for a giant dome. And took all these panels around. These were just made of paper and using bamboo, and so didn't really have the hutia for the whole flash one. So I suppose it was sort of a prototype for something wonderful, but never actually eventuated there. But so every living being of Aotearoa was like represented in this dome. There were hundreds of them. And with domes, you raise them up from the bottom, these momoko raukura, and that's like the local hall, and local, hall, church hall, quite big. It was quite big. So you build them up from the bottom, and so this is like challenging science, dare I say. This is the inside-out world. This is our life experience as being in the womb of a creation, the womb of Papatuanuku, not a little hard wall lost in space. So yeah, as an artist, I love challenging the sort of accepted scientific ideas. I think that's the really important job of creatives, is to look under every stone and look at all the different many possibilities. And I love this one. It's one I really believe in. I think it's completely, completely real. This is the sky, and this is looking up inside the dome. Very hard thing to photograph from inside. Just say that's the sun and all the heavens. That's like made from about 30 little 5-year-olds all going hard. Yeah. This isn't a good photo, but I just wanted to give you some idea of the size and total encapsulating feeling of it. So, yeah. Mokopuna, tamariki, kohanga reo, papatākaro. This is rakawa kohanga reo and otaki. Just love just making beautiful spaces. My little mokopuna, te ao maia, with rongo mātāne at the entrance to the beautiful Marakai. And the mosaics all made by whānau, expressing exactly what they want, and creating our own beautiful creative worlds around us for the mokopuna to to engage in. Yeah, these ferrous cement, this is the whole sand pit sort of water play area. Right. And I'm just going to get into some taniwha, the power of the collective power, the people power of people when they come working together. To me, that is like really expressed in the body of taniwha. This is the little, this is that down at Te Araho, us all working as a whānau, and with the residents of Te Araho Flats, creating a playground. This is my daughter at Raukawa Kohanga Reo, Papatakaro. This is the taniwha of 1,000 hands, which has got the 1,000 tamariki hands all over it. You can see them all made of ceramic and full of broken glass. This is Te Tuna ki Paraparaumu, which is now, it was after this, I did this part, and then it was covered with all the mosaic of all the local children. Guardian of the Rebirth of Pōmari, this is another taniwha. So I showed the residents, I was working with a homework group in Farmers Crescent in Pōmari, and they asked to see some photos of what I was doing, and I showed them one of the taniwha of 1,000 hands, and they said, oh, we'd really like a taniwha, we really want a taniwha. And so we started building this taniwha without any money at all, without, you know, it was just what everyone just came together and pulled together and created this wonderfully amazing taniwha in their communal space. Anyway, it was like 30 years ago. No, probably about 30 years ago, yeah. Anyway, recently they pulled all the units down and scattered the community all over the place. But at the time when we made the taniwha, which is called the Guardian to the Rebirth of Pōmari, the residents also had created a pāharekeke just over here a bit, and they actually occupied the area to save the pāharekeke and their taniwha, and they managed to convince the council to preserve the taniwha. So they called me in, and I started working with the mokopuna of all the people that used to live there, or that all helped with the taniwha and the original. And we started making a new project to sort of refresh the old one because it needed some work, and this was all made with all the little mokopuna hands from the Kohanga Reo, and everyone did this nice, beautiful new seat. And yeah, it's sad though because, you know, all the original residents are all pushed around the corner, and it's all very open. But everyone it was really good, and that taniwha still stands, being the guardian to the rebirth of Pōmari. So that's it, without all the being that sort of communal space, even though it will probably become so with time. Okay, just talking about ara now, pathways. Okay, these are all about making public art, which has got the skin of many people in there, you know, so everyone has a part in it, rather than art which is imposed in elite, to making our spaces collectively. This is a whole collective mosaic. Found that mosaics are a really good way for people to work together and bring a whole lot of, it doesn't matter sort of where you're from, who you're from, you can actually make a cohesive artwork collectively. Here we are. So that's always a big mahi for whānau when we do something like that, because it will, you ask people to contribute their whakaaro and designs and that, but to actually be able to go right through to the end to make it like the detailed mahi involved in making the mosaics, it requires a bit of sort of effort, as my whānau knows well. It's us in the studio. Here we go, Kuruho's hands. That's another big project that we did with a whole collective community in the hut. These are just different ones. Yeah, so just really important to me how us working together, creating new systems. I love the way by visually creating things, you can actually make new social structures. You can actually cause them to, you can actually prove them by making them. You know what I mean? So you can sort of prove an inside-out world by making an inside-out world. So this is about te whare kareta o hini nui te pō. So the whakaaro, the mātauranga within this is we live inside, we come from hini nui te pō and we return to hini nui te pō. There she is, my mokopuna waiaria. And this this is all about countering the huge digital world of all the attraction with the light and the screen and all that. And it was like a hands-on experience of light and puppetry and for our mokopuna and for us all, the mokopuna within us all. So it starts off being in the body of hini nui te pō with Papa Tunuku and Rangi Nui and Te Ao Marama living inside the tinangatanga of hini nui te pō. These are just images from that lovely, for a lovely event. It had a few things. So like the magic of light and shadow. And at the beginning it starts with like the tinana of hini nui te pō is just standing there separate, but then there's a sort of an engagement into her, and by the time at the end of the show she's completely wrapped all around everybody. Yeah. So there's illusion too. So we've got the people working on the back and my whānau there. And at the back, it's all just made of bamboo and tape and builder's paper and stuff like that. Yeah, resourcefulness, you use what you got when you've got it. There's no such thing as rubbish. And this is a recent one in Otaki. We made all these little beautiful tapuwai, little clay footprints with like old broken bottles sprinkled in it in the kiln, making all these beautiful coloured little footprints. And we just did like a pop-up random, just did a big hikoi all down the whole street with all these little footprints going from the most tiniest little babies. We had about 300 kids' footprints represented, and they just walk through down the street, and then the kids all came with chalk and just completely bombed the place of colour. And it was cool because it was random. We didn't have to answer. We didn't bother with council, like getting permission or anything like that. We just did it because it's our space and they're our steps, and this world belongs to our mokopuna and the sacred journey that each and every one of us is on, and the importance of looking at where we walk and how we tread. Our responsibility to our beautiful life, yeah. And at the end of it, this is my dad when he passed away, and I just had to paint him buried in the earth with all the dogs and the cats that we've all loved, and they're part of our heart, and just sleeping in the dream of the mycelium and the interconnectedness of everything. That's another one, my obsession with the whole mystique of life and death and everything. The whole completeness. This is about ka tahi ka waihanga rawa I te mara ki a hono tahi ai. It's about the taha tāne, taha wahine, creating the space that we move in. This is whatu ngaro ngaro te tangata, toi tu te whenua. And the ongoingness of the world around us and the human come and go. I'm coming just about to the end of this now, and I just want to talk about the whare oaha, like made all these tents of universes and other things, and it was like getting so heavy, and so I really want to start making real light mahi. I'm getting too old for heavy stuff. So what my beautiful whānau, we're together, all working together to create another whare. And we don't have to work on sewing machines, we don't have to work with heavy welding, because we're building it out of our values and our actions and our collective mahi together. and we don't, we can take this whare awaha with us and embrace and shelter anyone and manaaki anyone that comes into it. I suppose it's like virtual but not online, but it's, yeah, if you can imagine it around you. And this is the whare that we're building collectively and creating a new, different business model, a different operational, model, I suppose. No. And this is one of the works that we've recently been working on. It's a game. It's just a board game about how life, how you move in life, and what your beginnings, how your beginning will affect where you end. Your whakapapa will affect where you go. It's just a one to just end on. And so that is, I'm pretty sure, mutunga. So I hope it wasn't too boring, but I'm open for questions, and there's a microphone that can be passed around, and I'm very happy to answer questions. If you want to put your hand up, I think Moya's going to, or someone's going to pass the microphone to you. Or you can just shout out. No questions? Oh, there's someone.
I don't really even know how to frame my question. I was going to start with a comment that I think you sort of defined the aesthetic of Bohemian Wellington for many years when I was sort of coming of age in Wellington. But what I'm seeing, going through all this, which I find sort of almost quite overwhelming, especially some of the images of horror and things, which I think, having gone through that sort of existential threat of nuclear war in the 80s, and I'm now sort of coming into contact with a lot of young people who are going through the existential threat of climate change and are hopelessly anxious. And it seems to me that the strength of some of your images, even the quite horrific ones, actually made it much easier to deal with the world as it was back then. And we are perhaps lacking those strong images. So it's not really a question, but if you have any comment to make on the lack of that, we seem to have had a bit of a blendification of some of the horrors of the world in recent years, which I think is partially a class thing. So I'm covering a lot of ground here. But if you think there is a way of addressing anxiety of young people through art, I'd be really interested.
Yeah, kia ora. My thoughts is connection. It's about connection. I used to think it was about identifying the fearful things, but when I went to Te Wānanga o Raukua and did Māori laws and philosophy and that, I was all ready to sort of take the world by storm and pull the enemy factions down. But what I did come to realise was that it starts with connection and whānau and reconnection, and I think that I really think it's all about aroha and connection. And no matter how much you fight and slam your head against the wall and give face to the scary stuff, I just can't really be bothered really looking at that scary stuff right now. Let's sort of focus on creative, be just the creative of what we've got, because we're pretty awesome life. We can do this, we can do great things. But yeah, I think we've got to support each other as people and stop being so nasty to each other. Anyone else? Kōrero anō?
Just saying that your work is kind of ahead of a lot of the watersheds of international art movements. Do you know what I mean? And it's kind of what you're showing there is like a few years ahead of what men have shown in galleries around the world. Do you know what I mean? And
they copied me.
I know. And it does look like that. And I'm going, how do we get the world to see a woman who's been thinking these things through in a way that actually, because what you've been saying is totally what the world needs to hear now at the moment, and all of those different artifacts that you've shown, all those different tents, if we could send them out around the world to all the different areas where there are conflicts and stuff, and have that connection, then you're kind of moving, what the seeds of what you're trying to do, you can move through into, because you've done it all already. There's no need for anybody else to already do it, because you've done it. But what it is about getting your voice out there. So how do we do that? How do we magnify what you're saying, which is much more vital and valid than a lot of stuff that is kind of not dissing anybody else's work, but this is really pertinent to what needs to be shown. Do you know what I mean? So how do we do that?
I don't know. It's been my problem of my life.
We're going to have to work
I
on
really feel like I really try to make stuff from my heart, and it's I like to have the integrity of what I do. Yeah. And so I don't know why no one takes me seriously.
Where is that block? Because and this is I don't mean any disrespect to any of the other artists around, but I'm seeing a whole range of women who have incredible voices and incredible catalogues of work, but they're not. And I used to take tours with students all around art galleries all around the world, but they're not there, And it's like, how do we now get those? Because those women's voices are the antidote, the remedy for all the ills of society. But how do we get? Where do you think that block is? Can you, in your experience, where is that block forming? Why is it not? Where's that ceiling? What do we need to push to get you out there more?
Well, the white patriarchy.
It's not just white patriarchy. I'm from Northern Ireland. You know what I mean?
Male, patriarchs, males. But it's that. I just sort of being aware of the sort of. I'm not a big sports person, but I can't help but notice the women's rugby and the Samoan rugby and to think that they haven't even been given the light of day for so long, and like now they are, and they probably can't go back. So once things come out, the contrast of the glaring, obvious absence of becomes known. As long as there isn't that absence or that glaring, obvious absence, no one's looking, so no one notices. I think, So it's like we've had a long time of, gosh, I don't know. It's like stifled, sort of strange way of growing is our human species. I think we're really lost in the sort of the speed of technology, and I really don't think no one really knows where we're going collectively. And I don't think I think we should be spending more time on looking at other ways of thinking away from the scientific and looking at the other thinking ways, other being ways. Yeah, I don't know how we solve it. Go pull down all the schools and start fresh, and I don't know. It's like so complex.
Is it really complex though, or is it really simple? But we're getting distracted by nonsense, because actually what you're, it seems like there's quite a lot of answers in your talk and in the work that you're doing. There's like lots of solutions there, but then as a society we've kind of got so busy rather than pulling down, listening to that and acting on that connection. Sorry, that was really
Yeah, no, I appreciate that you see that what I'm saying, talking about is valid. It is valid.
It's very valid, and I can think of like umpteen artists around the world that have been doing similar work, but not as potent, if you know what I mean. And they've done similar work after what you've done. So, and and there's a purity in yours, which is very congruent and very really, really, really valuable. So I'm just trying to figure out how do we get the art galleries to network with other art galleries so that work can go around the world so people can see that, you know, because I think that there is a demand for that in this world at the moment.
I'd suggest don't have it in the art galleries. It's like really sort of like for artists and people that want to be creative to really break down the walls of the art gallery structures and take ownership of our collective spaces and our collective creative energies and spaces. Yeah, I would break down the old structures and recreate new ones.
I agree. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. If you got one.
How your work becomes really like a parallel process of experience for you as an artist, and then you share that experience by, you know, public art and inviting people into the process of making. And I have a bit of a hypothesis, I guess, that I'm wondering whether art changes the maker more than it does the audience. And as an experiential kind of artist, I'm curious to know how you feel like your long career of creating art has changed you as a person.
My art is like if you imagine a snail moving with their slime trail behind them. That's me in my art. That's my movement through life. It's my visual path. I had a dream about snails creating the universe and their slime. That was actually very cool.
Such a wonderful image to end the talk on. I love that. I'll introduce myself. My name is Caleb Gordon. I'm the public program manager here at City Gallery, so I get to organise events like this. I'll bring this event to a close now that we've pushed our time, and we're trying to do something else in here after. But thank you, Debra, for this talk. It was a wonderful way to something beautiful to present on the final day of At Threshold, which is the exhibition upstairs in which we've got your work currently exhibited. So if you haven't seen Debra's work installed, we've got a couple of hours left before we close that show, so please make sure you get upstairs and check it out. Hopefully we won't have to wait this long again before we bring that work back out and some of your other works that you've shown to us. But if you could all join me in thanking Debra for sharing this talk with us, and hopefully see you all here back again soon.